Natsani had always been known in her small Apache village as a strong and capable woman. Life had not been kind to her, yet she carried herself with a quiet dignity that others admired. She had grown up in the arid landscapes of the Southwest, where the sun scorched the earth during the day and the nights brought a chill that could seep into your bones. From a young age, she had learned to work with the land, to respect the animals, and to understand the rhythm of life in a community that valued resilience and tradition above all else. Her family had been close-knit. She remembered her childhood days filled with laughter, running through the dusty paths between homes, helping her mother prepare meals over an open fire, and listening to the elders tell stories about their ancestors. Those stories were more than just entertainment. They were lessons, a way to pass on knowledge and wisdom through generations. Natsani had always listened carefully, absorbing every word, understanding that one day she would be responsible for carrying those lessons forward. When Natsani married, it had been a union of love, respect, and practical necessity. Her husband, like her, understood the hardships of life. They shared dreams of raising a family, tending to the land, and being pillars of their community. Together, they faced the challenges of daily life, fetching water from the nearby river, hunting for food, caring for children, and maintaining their home. Natsani's hands were rough from work, but they were capable hands, skilled in crafting, cooking, and nurturing. She had pride in what she could do, and in the life she had built with her husband. Then, one day, everything changed. Her husband fell ill unexpectedly. The illness came swiftly and without warning, leaving Natsani in a state of shock and despair. She watched helplessly as the man she loved struggled and then passed away, leaving her alone with children who were too young to understand the permanence of loss. The grief was heavy, a weight that seemed impossible to bear. Nights were the hardest. She would lie awake, listening to the quiet of the empty house, remembering the laughter that once filled it, and feeling the emptiness that had replaced it. Yet, despite her sorrow, Natsani knew she could not afford to crumble. Life did not pause for grief. She had responsibilities. Her children depended on her. Her family counted on her. And her community expected her to continue her role. Each day, she rose with the sun, performing the tasks her husband had once shared with her. She drew water, cooked meals, and tended to the small plot of land that provided food for her family. Her heart ached, but her hands moved with purpose, guided by necessity and a sense of duty. In the village, people began to notice her strength. They admired how she handled her grief with grace, how she managed her household alone, and how she continued to participate in community activities. Elders would nod in approval when they saw her helping with communal tasks, and younger women often looked to her as an example of resilience. But admiration did not ease the loneliness she felt. The absence of a partner, someone to share her thoughts with, someone to support her emotionally, was a constant ache in her heart. Over time, Natsani began to reflect on what she truly wanted for herself. She thought about the future, not just the survival of her family, but the quality of life she could provide for her children and herself. She considered what it meant to be happy, to feel companionship, and to have a partner who would respect her, value her abilities, and share in the responsibilities of family life. In her reflections, she realized something important. She could no longer wait for life to happen to her. She had to be willing to speak up, to assert her worth, and to claim a future that aligned with her capabilities and her hopes. The idea of remarriage was common in the village. Widowed women often remarried for stability, protection, and support. But Natsani did not want to simply be chosen because of necessity or pity. She wanted a union based on respect and understanding, where both partners could contribute to the household and support each other through the hardships of life. This realization gave her a sense of empowerment. For the first time since her husband's death, she felt a spark of control over her destiny. Her younger sister, Ahuli, was very different from her. Ahuli was gentle and soft-spoken, with a beauty that turned heads in the village. She was admired for her kindness and her obedience to tradition. People often assumed that Ahuli would be the preferred choice for marriage, given her youth and charm. Natsani, however, knew that beauty alone could not sustain a family, especially one that faced the daily demands of survival. Her experience, wisdom, and practical skills made her more capable in the long run, but she also knew that society might not see it immediately. This awareness sparked a quiet determination within her. She would not simply wait for someone to notice her value. She would have to speak for herself, demonstrate her abilities, and make her intentions clear. She began to think about how she would approach the man who might become her future husband. She wanted him to understand that her worth was not just in her appearance, but in her character, her resilience, and her ability to care for a family. Days passed, and the routine of life continued. Natsani cared for her children, worked on the land, and participated in community ceremonies. She learned to find moments of peace in her work, taking satisfaction in small achievements, a successful harvest, a well-prepared meal, or a smile from one of her children. Her grief remained, but it became tempered by purpose. She realized that sorrow did not have to define her life. Instead, it could be a source of strength, reminding her of what mattered most. At the same time, she observed the men in the community, including those who were seeking a wife. She noticed their preferences, their tendencies, and the qualities they valued. Natsani understood that many of them might prioritize beauty and youth over experience and wisdom. This knowledge reinforced her resolve. She had to find a way to show that she could offer something more lasting, a partnership built on trust, understanding, and practical capability. In quiet moments, she would speak to herself, rehearsing the words she might say. I can do this. I can speak for myself. I can show him that I am strong, capable, and ready for life's challenges. These affirmations gave her courage, and slowly, she began to plan her approach. She knew that speaking out of turn could invite criticism or disapproval, but she also understood that silence would leave her fate in the hands of others. She decided that honesty, sincerity, and courage were her best tools. As the days turned into weeks, the idea of remarriage became more than just a thought, it became a goal. Natsani imagined a future where she could provide stability and love for her children, share responsibilities with a partner who respected her, and continue to honor her family and community traditions. The thought of achieving this future filled her with determination, a renewed sense of purpose that gave her strength to face each day. The village life, with all its hardships and joys, continued around her. Children played in the dusty streets, elders shared wisdom, and families worked together to ensure survival. In the midst of it all, Natsani carried her grief quietly, but she also carried a spark of hope. She knew that the path ahead would not be easy, that she would face challenges, and that her courage would be tested. Yet, for the first time since her husband's death, she felt ready to step forward and shape her own destiny. Her story, in this first chapter of her life after loss, is one of quiet strength, determination, and reflection. It is the story of a woman who refuses to be defined by her circumstances, who honors her grief but does not let it control her, and who begins to recognize the power she holds in shaping her own future. Natsani's journey is just beginning, and the choices she makes next will not only impact her life, but the lives of those around her, including her children, her sister, and the community that watches her every move. By the time the sun sets each evening, Natsani stands at the edge of her small home, looking out at the land she knows so well. The wind carries the scent of sage and the distant sounds of life, children laughing, animals moving, the soft hum of activity. She breathes deeply, feeling the weight of her past, the responsibility of her present, and the possibilities of her future. With every passing day, she grows more certain that when the time comes, she will speak her truth, assert her worth, and claim a future that she knows she deserves. Life in the Apache village continued with its familiar rhythms, yet for Natsani, the days carried a new sense of purpose. She had decided that she would not remain silent about her future. She knew the man in the village who was seeking a wife, a thoughtful, hard-working man named Tay. He was respected among his people for his fairness, his skills in hunting and farming, and his dedication to family. Everyone assumed that when the time came, he would choose a young, gentle woman, someone like Natsani's younger sister, Ahuli. But Natsani had a different plan. Ahuli was lovely and soft-spoken, Her beauty was the kind that drew people in immediately. She moved gracefully, spoke politely, and seemed to embody all the qualities the village admired in a young woman. While Natsani had a beauty of her own, it was tempered by years of experience and responsibility. Her face showed lines of care, her hands were calloused from work, and her demeanor reflected strength and maturity. Natsani knew that Tai would see Ahuli and think of her as the natural choice. That reality made Natsani's resolve stronger. She could not let assumptions determine her future. One late afternoon, Natsani quietly prepared herself to speak with Taye. She had spent days thinking carefully about what she would say. It was not enough to simply declare her interest. She had to explain why she was the right choice, not just in terms of beauty or charm, but in character, skill, and dedication. As she approached Tae's home, she felt a mixture of nervousness and determination. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the village, and the air was warm with the lingering heat of the day. When she arrived, Tae was outside repairing a fence. He looked up and smiled politely, recognizing the widow's presence. Natsani took a deep breath and spoke, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Tae," she began, "I know many might expect you to choose my sister, Ahuli. She is young, gentle, and admired by all. But I ask you to consider me instead. I would be the better wife. I have the experience, the strength, and the understanding to help you build a strong family and a stable home." Tae paused, surprised by her boldness. It was unusual for a woman to speak so directly, and especially for a widow to approach him in this way. He listened carefully as Natsani continued, explaining not only her abilities but also her deep sense of responsibility and loyalty. She spoke of her children, her knowledge of managing a household, and her commitment to the traditions of their people. Her words were not boastful. They were honest, heartfelt, and persuasive. As Natsani spoke, she noticed the expressions of curiosity and contemplation on Tae's face. She had expected surprise, but she had hoped for understanding, and she could see that beginning to form. She did not know what his final decision would be, but the act of speaking her truth gave her a sense of liberation. She had taken control of her destiny in a way she never had before. Meanwhile, Ahuli remained unaware of her sister's approach. She continued with her daily activities, helping neighbors, tending to small animals, and assisting her mother with chores. Ahuli's heart was gentle, and she had always trusted that the right match would come to her naturally. She never imagined that Natsani would step forward in such a bold way. Yet, unbeknownst to Ahuli, the dynamics in the village were beginning to shift. Over the next several days, Tae observed both sisters more closely. He noticed Ahuli's beauty and kindness, her gentle voice, and respectful manner. She had the qualities that everyone expected in a future wife, and many in the village assumed she would be the natural choice. But as he watched Natsani, he began to see something different. Her strength was evident in how she managed her children, cared for her home, and supported her neighbors. Her wisdom shone through in small decisions, in her calm demeanor during challenges, and in the way she handled the complexities of life with patience and skill. Tae found himself in a difficult position. He had been prepared to follow tradition and select a young, charming woman, but now he realized that qualities like wisdom, resilience, and practical skill were equally, if not more, important. He began to question what he truly wanted in a partner. Was it mere beauty and youth, or was it someone who could share life's burdens, offer guidance, and build a family with understanding and loyalty? Natsani, aware of Tae's observations, continued her life with quiet dignity. She did not act arrogantly or try to overshadow her sister. Instead, she remained consistent in her actions, demonstrating through her daily life that her words were not empty promises. Her sincerity became evident to Tae, and he started to respect her not only for her capabilities but for her honesty and courage. Tensions in the village began to rise subtly. Some villagers whispered about Natsani's boldness, questioning whether a widow should speak so freely. Others admired her courage and began to support her quietly. Ahuli, though unaware of the details, began to sense that something had changed. She noticed the way Taiye's attention seemed to shift, the thoughtful look in his eyes when he observed her sister, and the growing respect he appeared to hold for Natsani. One evening, the village held a small gathering to celebrate the harvest. Families came together to share food, stories, and laughter. During the event, Tay observed both sisters interact with the community. Ahuli was gracious and kind, admired for her beauty and politeness. Natsani, on the other hand, handled challenges calmly. A spilled basket of food, a child who fell and scraped his knee, neighbors seeking advice on daily problems. Her composure, care, and leadership stood out, and Tay could not help but be impressed. As the night went on, Tay reflected on what he truly sought in a partner. The choice was not easy. He had to consider more than appearances. He had to think about the future, about the family he wanted to build, and about the life that would be sustainable and strong. Natsani's words, her actions, and her unwavering sense of responsibility weighed heavily in his mind. He began to see that she offered something lasting, something beyond beauty or charm. A partnership rooted in strength, loyalty, and shared values. During these days, Natsani also reflected on her feelings for Tai. She did not approach him out of mere desire or social expectation. She genuinely believed they could build a life together that was meaningful and supportive. Her heart held hope, but she remained realistic. She knew that Tay's choice would not be influenced by her words alone. He would need to observe, understand, and decide for himself. This patience and humility only added to her strength. Finally, after weeks of quiet observation, reflection, and interaction, Tay began to make his decision. He realized that while Ahuli's youth and beauty were admirable, they could not replace the qualities that Natsani embodied. Her courage, wisdom, and practical skills were exactly what he needed in a partner. He recognized that by choosing her, he would not only gain a capable and loyal wife, but also ensure a stable and nurturing environment for the children she already had. In the village, the news of Taiye's contemplation began to spread. People watched quietly, curious about his decision. Some supported Natsani openly, recognizing her strength and experience. Others remained skeptical, unsure if a widow could truly lead a household alongside a man in the traditional sense. Yet, through it all, Natsani maintained her dignity, focusing on her responsibilities, her children, and her community. The turning point came one afternoon when Taiye invited Natsani to speak with him privately. He wanted to understand her feelings more deeply and ensure that her intentions were genuine. In that moment, Natsani spoke honestly once again, explaining her hopes, her dreams, and her vision for a shared life. She did not demand his choice, but she made it clear that she believed in her ability to be a loving, capable partner. Tay listened with respect and admiration. He could see the truth in her words, the sincerity in her eyes, and the strength in her demeanor. The decision, once difficult, became clear to him. Natsani was the woman he wanted by his side, not only because of her abilities, but because of her character, integrity, and heart. By the end of Part 2, the stage was set for a significant change in the lives of both sisters and the man they cared about. Natsani's courage to speak her truth had created ripples throughout the village, challenging assumptions and expectations. Her boldness and honesty had not only made her intentions clear but had begun to shape the path toward a future built on respect, understanding, and partnership. After Natsani had spoken to Taiye, life in the village began to feel different. There was a quiet tension in the air, a sense that something important was unfolding. Taiye, who had been thoughtful and patient in his observations, now found himself facing a difficult challenge. He admired both sisters, each in her own way. Ahuli had the softness, the charm, and the gentle beauty that everyone expected him to choose. Natsani had the strength, wisdom, and experience that made her capable of handling life's hardships. Choosing between them was not simply a matter of preference, it was a matter of character, understanding, and the life he wanted to build. Tay decided that he could not make a decision quickly. He wanted to see both women in their daily lives, to observe how they interacted with their families, how they managed responsibilities, and how they responded to unexpected challenges. Over the next several weeks, he watched carefully, learning lessons he had never thought he would need to learn. Natsani continued her life with quiet strength. She cared for her children, prepared meals, worked in the fields, and assisted the elders with their tasks. Every action she took demonstrated her ability to handle responsibilities calmly and efficiently. One morning, when a sudden storm threatened the crops, Natsani organized neighbors to protect their harvest. She worked tirelessly, making quick decisions, offering guidance, and ensuring that everyone was safe. Tay observed from a distance, impressed by her leadership and problem-solving skills. It became clear that she was not just capable of managing her own home, she could contribute to the entire community. Ahuli, meanwhile, remained graceful and charming. She helped with daily chores, smiled warmly at neighbors, and was admired for her gentleness. However, when unexpected problems arose, her youth and inexperience became more noticeable. She hesitated when decisions needed to be made quickly and often deferred to others. Tay began to realize that while Ahuli's beauty and demeanor were appealing, they were not enough to build a life that required resilience and careful judgment. During this time, subtle tensions arose within the family. Some relatives whispered that Natsani was overstepping her bounds by openly asserting her interest in Taye. Others admired her courage and the clarity with which she expressed herself. Ahuli began to sense that her sister had taken a bold step, and she felt a mixture of surprise and uncertainty. At first, she was unsure how to respond, caught between loyalty to her sister and the attention she herself received from Tay. One day, an incident occurred that would reveal the true nature of both sisters. A young child in the village had wandered off and gotten lost in the nearby hills. Panic spread quickly, and neighbors rushed to search. Natsani immediately organized a small group to look for the child, assigning tasks and ensuring that each area was covered. Her calm leadership allowed the search to proceed efficiently, and she remained composed even when the hours passed and the child was not found immediately. Eventually, they discovered the child safe, scared but unharmed, and everyone praised Natsani for her quick thinking and courage. Ahuli, though worried and anxious for the child, found herself overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty. She stayed close to the adults, unsure how to contribute effectively. The contrast between the sisters became more evident, not out of rivalry, but through the natural display of their qualities. Tay noticed this difference clearly. He understood that life with Natsani would include someone who could handle crises, make decisions under pressure, and maintain stability in challenging times. As the days passed, Taye reflected on what kind of life he truly wanted. He began to understand that marriage was not simply about beauty or charm, but about partnership, trust, and shared responsibility. Natsani's consistent actions, her ability to care for others, and her leadership in both small and significant matters made a deep impression on him. He realized that her strength was not intimidating but comforting, not harsh but wise. Natsani herself continued to act with humility. She did not flaunt her abilities or seek praise. She simply lived her life as she always had, caring for her children, assisting neighbors, and respecting the traditions of her people. Yet, in every action, she demonstrated qualities that were essential for a lasting partnership. Her sincerity, courage, and dedication spoke louder than words ever could. Ahuli, observing her sister, began to understand the depth of Natsani's character. She realized that her own youth and beauty, while admired, could not match the practical wisdom and emotional strength that Natsani possessed. Instead of feeling envy, Ahuli felt admiration and a quiet sense of pride for her sister. She began to support Natsani in subtle ways, assisting with tasks, sharing kind words, and acknowledging the value of her sister's experience. Taye's decision was still difficult. Choosing Natsani over Ahuli would challenge expectations and provoke discussions within the community. Many people assumed he would select Ahuli, as tradition suggested. But Tay was beginning to understand that following expectations blindly was not the path to a strong and enduring life. He had to consider what would truly matter in the long-term: stability, partnership, and the ability to face life's challenges together. During this period, Tay also spent time reflecting on his own values and goals. He thought about the family he wanted to raise, the home he wished to create, and the support he would need from a partner. Natsani's qualities aligned with these aspirations perfectly. Her experience, insight, and dedication would not only complement his own abilities, but also ensure that together they could face whatever hardships came their way. One afternoon, Tay sought out Natsani for a private conversation. He wanted to hear her thoughts about the future, to understand her vision for family and life. In a quiet moment under the shade of a large oak tree, Natsani spoke with honesty and clarity. She expressed her hopes for a partnership built on respect, trust, and shared responsibilities. She did not demand his choice, but she made her intentions known and shared her readiness to contribute fully to a shared life. Tay listened intently, struck by her honesty and thoughtfulness. He realized that she had not come to him out of desperation or fear, but from a place of courage and confidence. Her words were not empty promises. They were reflections of a life lived with purpose, integrity, and resilience. In that moment, he felt a deep respect for her and an understanding that his decision was becoming clear. Meanwhile, Ahuli noticed the seriousness of Taya's demeanor and began to suspect that her sister's chances were growing. At first, she felt a pang of fear, unsure how she would respond if Natsani were chosen. But as she observed her sister, she recognized that Natsani's strengths were undeniable, and that supporting her would be the right choice. Ahuli's feelings shifted from concern to admiration and acceptance, and she quietly stepped back, allowing her sister the space to claim what she deserved. The village, too, was aware of the tension surrounding Tay's decision. Elders and neighbors watched closely, discussing the situation in hushed tones. Some questioned whether it was appropriate for a widow to be chosen over a younger, more traditionally admired woman. Others respected Natsani's courage and saw wisdom in Taya's careful consideration. The situation challenged long-held assumptions about age, beauty, and experience in relationships, prompting reflection throughout the community. Over the following days, Taya made careful observations. He noted Natsani's consistency, how she treated everyone with fairness, how she faced challenges with calm determination, and how she balanced her responsibilities while maintaining her compassion. He saw Ahuli's grace and kindness, but also her limitations in handling practical and emotional challenges. The contrast became increasingly clear, and Taye understood that the choice was not about favoritism or appearance, but about the foundation for a life of partnership and stability. Eventually, Taye's decision became inevitable. He recognized that Natsani's qualities were exactly what he sought in a life partner. Her courage, wisdom, and ability to nurture both family and community demonstrated a depth that could not be ignored. He knew that by choosing her, he would gain a companion capable of facing life's uncertainties with him, someone whose presence would strengthen the family and the village as a whole. In this stage of her journey, Natsani had proven her worth not through competition, but through authenticity. Her actions, her patience, and her strength had spoken louder than any words could. Tay's growing respect and admiration reflected not only her abilities but the depth of her character. The story of Natsani in these weeks is one of testing, observation, and revelation, a testament to the power of resilience, honesty, and courage in shaping one's destiny. By the end of Part 3, the tension had reached its peak. Taye had witnessed the differences between the sisters, reflected deeply on his own values, and prepared to make a choice that would shape the future for all involved. Natsani's journey, marked by grief, determination, and quiet courage, had brought her to the brink of a new beginning. The story now moved toward resolution, with lessons of character, partnership, and respect poised to unfold. The day finally came when Tay knew he had to make his decision. Weeks of observation, reflection, and quiet consideration had led him to a conclusion that he could no longer avoid. The village had noticed the tension and curiosity in the air, and whispers floated through the streets, questioning who Taye would choose. But Taye's mind was clear. He had seen both sisters in countless moments, in joy, in hardship, in responsibility, and in care, and the answer had become undeniable. Natsani, meanwhile, carried herself with her usual dignity. She had spoken her truth and demonstrated her worth through her daily life. She had never pressured anyone or acted arrogantly. She simply lived in a way that showed her capability, her courage, and her heart. The thought of being chosen filled her with hope. But she did not let expectation cloud her patience. She trusted that honesty, effort, and character would speak louder than words alone. Taye approached Natsani in the late afternoon, the sun casting a warm golden light over the village. He called her aside, away from the eyes and ears of the gathering crowds, so they could speak privately. His heart was steady, and there was a sense of calm in his voice as he addressed her. Natsani listened carefully, sensing that this moment would mark a turning point in her life. "I have watched both of you," Tay began, "and I have seen the beauty and kindness of Ahuli, and I have seen your strength, wisdom, and dedication. Natsani, I know what you can give to a family, to a household, and to a life shared together. I have thought long and hard, and I want you to be my wife." Natsani felt a mixture of relief, joy, and gratitude. She had spoken boldly, but hearing the words out loud from Tay filled her with a deep sense of validation. This was not a choice made from pity, obligation, or tradition. It was a choice made from understanding, respect, and recognition of her true worth. "I will," she said softly, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I will share my life with you, Tay. I promise to be loyal, caring, and devoted to our family and our home. Together, we will face life's challenges and celebrate its joys." The decision sent ripples through the village. Some were surprised that Natsani, the widow with responsibilities and experience, had been chosen over the younger, more traditionally admired Ahuli. Others quietly nodded, understanding the wisdom in Tay's choice. Elders praised his judgment, recognizing that selecting a partner was about more than appearances. It was about character, compatibility, and shared values. Ahuli, though initially taken aback, approached her sister quietly. She smiled warmly, placing a gentle hand on Natsani's shoulder. "I am proud of you," she said softly. "You spoke your truth and showed your strength. You deserve this, and I will support you in every way." The sisters shared a moment of deep connection, a bond strengthened by honesty, respect, and mutual admiration. Ahuli's acceptance and support reflected the maturity and love she held for her sister. There was no bitterness, no envy, only pride and understanding. As the community learned of the decision, many sought to celebrate. Neighbors offered congratulations, small gifts, and blessings. The elders provided guidance and shared their wisdom on building a strong household. The village recognized that Taya's choice was not just a personal decision but an example of careful consideration, respect for character, and valuing experience alongside beauty. Preparations for the union began in earnest. Natsani and Taye worked together to plan a simple but meaningful ceremony, honoring their traditions and the shared values of the Apache people. The focus was not on grandeur or display but on the strength of commitment, the foundation of partnership, and the bonds of family and community. During this time, Natsani reflected on her journey. She thought about the years since her husband's passing, the grief she had endured, the responsibilities she had shouldered alone, and the courage it had taken to speak her truth. Each step had been difficult, but each step had prepared her for this moment. She realized that her strength had not only shaped her life but had inspired respect and admiration in those around her. Tay and Natsani spent time learning from one another. They shared stories of their past, hopes for the future, and dreams for their family. Tay admired Natsani's wisdom and calm approach to challenges, while she appreciated his fairness, thoughtfulness, and dedication. Their bond grew stronger with each conversation, each shared task, and each moment of mutual understanding. The children in Natsani's care also sensed the positive change. They saw a man who respected their mother, who treated her with kindness, and who valued her experience and strength. The children felt a sense of security and warmth, knowing that their home would now have both love and stability. Tay took the time to build trust with them, understanding that family was not just about union between two people, but about care, support, and shared responsibility for all members. As the wedding day approached, the village gathered to witness the union. The ceremony was simple, honoring traditions, blessings, and community values. Elders spoke words of guidance and encouragement, reminding everyone that marriage was a partnership built on respect, communication, and shared effort. Teye and Natsani exchanged vows that reflected sincerity, dedication, and understanding. There were smiles, tears, and heartfelt applause as the community acknowledged the joining of two lives grounded in honesty and mutual respect. After the ceremony, life settled into a new rhythm. Natsani and Taye worked together to manage the household, tending to the land, caring for children, and contributing to the well-being of their community. Their partnership was marked by cooperation, respect, and shared responsibilities. Challenges continued, as life in the village always presented obstacles, but together, they approached each difficulty with patience, wisdom, and determination. Natsani's boldness and honesty had not only led to her happiness but had also inspired those around her. Young women in the village began to see the value of speaking their truth and asserting their worth, understanding that experience, strength, and character could be as important as beauty and youth. Her story became a quiet example of courage, resilience, and the power of self-belief. Ahuli continued to live close to her sister, offering support and maintaining the bond that had strengthened through this journey. The sisters shared in the joys and challenges of daily life, their relationship deepened by mutual respect, love, and understanding. The harmony between them became a model of family unity, showing that support and admiration could overcome envy or rivalry. Natsani often reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She remembered the grief that had weighed heavily on her, the moments of doubt, and the fear of being overlooked. Yet, through resilience, honesty, and courage, she had shaped her destiny. She realized that the ability to act with integrity, to speak one's truth, and to remain steadfast in the face of uncertainty could lead to meaningful change and fulfillment. Tay, too, learned valuable lessons from this experience. He understood that true partnership was about valuing character, observing carefully, and making decisions that went beyond appearances. His respect for Natsani grew daily, as he saw the depth of her love, her strength, and her commitment to family and community. Together, they built a life that was secure, loving, and guided by shared values. As the seasons changed, Natsani and Taye continued to face life's challenges with determination. Droughts, unexpected illnesses, and other hardships tested their strength, but they met each one together. Their partnership was grounded in trust, mutual support, and a deep understanding of each other's abilities and needs. The children thrived under their care, learning from their mother's resilience and their father's fairness. In quiet moments, Natsani would think back to the day she had spoken her truth, telling Tai that she would be the better wife. That bold step had changed the course of her life, leading to a future filled with love, stability, and partnership. She understood that courage, honesty, and persistence were powerful forces, capable of shaping one's destiny, even in the face of tradition and expectation. The story of Natsani's journey became more than a personal tale. It became a lesson for the entire village. It showed that life's challenges could be met with strength and dignity, that honesty and courage could overcome assumptions and expectations, and that true partnership was built on respect, understanding, and shared effort. Natsani and Taye's home became a place of warmth, laughter, and care. Their relationship reflected balance and equality, with both contributing their strengths and supporting one another in areas of weakness. Life was not always easy, but it was meaningful, filled with purpose, and guided by shared values. The community recognized the wisdom in their union and respected the lessons it offered for future generations. Years later, Natsani would look back on this chapter of her life with gratitude. She had faced grief, uncertainty, and societal expectations, yet she had remained true to herself. By asserting her worth, demonstrating her abilities, and speaking her truth, she had secured not only a loving partner, but also a stable and nurturing environment for her family. Her story became a testament to courage, resilience, and the power of character to shape one's life. In the end, Natsani's journey was one of transformation from a widow, weighed down by grief, to a woman recognized for her strength, wisdom, and unwavering integrity. She had proven that life's greatest rewards often come to those who act with honesty, courage, and a deep understanding of their own worth. The village would remember her story for generations, a living example of how speaking one's truth and trusting in one's abilities could create a future filled with love, respect, and fulfillment.